Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now, your host, Tim Johnson.
Like tax and regulatory climates, a state's legal climate has a tremendous impact on economic development and job creation. A recent report says Louisiana's legal climate is improving, but still has a long way to go. We'll talk about this report and what it means to our state when Melissa Landry with Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch joins us on this edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
The Louisiana Business and Industry Show will be back right after this.
Founded in 1984, BIC Alliance and its subsidiaries connect business and industry buyers and suppliers with one another for the betterment of all. BIC helps companies grow in three ways: aggressive sales and marketing campaigns in BIC Magazine, finding the right people through BIC Recruiting, and by merger and acquisition and related services through IVS Investment Banking. Contact BIC Alliance today.
The funny thing about Louisiana is that people don't often ask you why you moved home. They just accept it as the most natural thing in the world. Because of course I would want to move back home and be near my tribe, be in this beautiful landscape. It just inspires me. Whether it's a golden marshland, an expanse of sugarcane fields, a sunset through a cypress swamp, the outdoors here really are like nowhere else. You can start your day off paddling at Lake Martin, finish it off with music at the Blue Moon. I came home for my dream job, but also because I believe in Louisiana and where it's going. We're building a world-class Central Park in Louisiana, planned by the members of this community. And I just bought my dream home, a sustainable house designed and built by the architecture students here at the university. My electricity bill was $30 last month. The life I thought I would have in Austin is actually happening right here in Louisiana. I'm E.B. Brooks. I have the job I want in the place I love.
At Peak Performance Physical Therapy, we treat the athlete in everyone, from the soccer star to the soccer mom. If your doctor prescribes physical therapy, ask for Peak Performance by name, getting you back in the game of life.
Consumers and property owners with a construction project can have a very successful result or a regretful experience that could have been avoided. Before beginning any construction project in Louisiana, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers may claim to be licensed or bonded, but you should ask for a copy of the license. For additional information, contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors or go to the website lslbc.louisiana.gov. Licensed and qualified contractors. It's the law.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show with Tim Johnson.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Very pleased to be joined by Melissa Landry with Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us what Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch is. Tell us about its mission and what you guys do.
Absolutely. LLAW is a high-impact legal watchdog organization. Our goal is to essentially try and improve Louisiana's legal climate through improving transparency and accountability and passing lawsuit reform.
You guys stay very active in the Louisiana legislature. I know you're very active with the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But the American Tort Reform Association recently released its annual report of what they call judicial hellholes, which is a really tough name. Louisiana was ranked the 7th worst judicial environment in the country. So explain to us what a judicial hellhole is and why it matters.
Yeah, essentially judicial hellholes are a list of some of the worst places in the country to be sued. It's places that have, whether it's perception or reality, but there's a perception that it's difficult to get a fair shake in these jurisdictions. And it matters no matter where you are in Louisiana. Certainly it's something that policymakers should be very concerned about because this negative perception certainly impacts jobs and investments in the state. But if you're a small business owner, it means that, where you're likely at a much higher risk of being sued. If you're driving your car home this afternoon, you get a little fender bender, you're at a pretty high risk of being sued in Louisiana. And even if you're not on the receiving end of litigation, being in a state that has a poor legal climate is of concern to you, because we pay for it in many different ways through the higher cost of goods and services, and certainly has an impact on employers when they're deciding where to relocate and expand businesses.
I don't think there's any question about that. I talked about it in the open of the show, that if you think about what employers look for when they're deciding where to invest, where to create jobs, where to bring their capital, obviously they want to look at regulatory environment, they want to look at the tax environment, they want to know that they can get well-educated, good performing workers. They want to know that there's some quality of life in that area, but certainly the legal climate is one of the considerations that any employer, any investor might look for, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, there is good news. We're number 7, which is not great, not necessarily where we want to be, but we're down from number 2 last year, right? What have you seen that has driven improvement in moving us from the second worst legal climate, judicial climate in the country to now the 7th worst?
It is good news that we're moving in the right direction. Last year was a very significant year for legal reform. In the legislature, we worked very closely with the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, the Coalition for Common Sense, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, to introduce and support a whole slew of legal reforms. Some of those were not successful, but we passed a major bill that had a tremendous impact to help to help really improve the state system for handing out legal contracts. Prior to the passage of our reform legislation, it was perfectly legal in the state of Louisiana for our state attorney general, the top law enforcement officer, to essentially hand out outside legal contracts to whomever. There was very little oversight.
Not really a selection criteria?
No selection criteria. There's very little process in place for really providing oversight of that process, and that led to some pretty disturbing outcomes in terms of politically connected campaign donors getting some pretty lucrative contracts. So, and also that doesn't help, that doesn't protect. It perhaps doesn't lead to the best outcome when the state is involved in litigation. So we passed a major reform bill to help improve that practice and put some safeguards and some oversight on that. And we're very proud of that work, and obviously it had a significant impact in helping us move down those rankings.
Well, there is always, it seems, work going on relative to tort reform in our state. I think if you go all the way back to Governor Mike Foster back in the early to mid-90s, who played a significant role in really beginning the process to improve our legal climate, I think for years and years and years, through the 70s and 80s, this was probably the most difficult state in the United States relative to its tort system and to its judicial and legal climate. I know that those things have improved significantly. Talk about some of the things that led us to be on this list, some of the difficulties, some of the things that your organization sees that need to be changed going forward or that are being worked on today. But those causes, we got about 2 minutes left, so let's talk about that.
Absolutely. And Governor Mike Foster said it better than anybody I've ever heard describe it. He said, there's too much suing going on. He was a small business owner, and he understood at a very personal level the impact that excessive litigation can have on small businesses. And he was a tremendous advocate for legal reform. And they did great work with the very pro-business legislature back in 1996. The reality is that was almost 20 years ago, and a lot has happened in the political and legal climate since then. And we, and there are a lot of new things that need to be addressed. Louisiana has some unique laws that really seem to encourage excessive litigation. The state's $50,000 jury trial threshold is a perfect example of a unique law that has a direct impact on our citizens and their pocketbooks. If you're not familiar with the jury trial threshold, essentially it is an arbitrary threshold that exists in civil legal filings that if you're involved in litigation where the value is less than $50,000, your case is decided by a judge. As a citizen, you do not have the right to request a trial before a jury of your peers. Louisiana is the only state in the country that has this arbitrary $50,000 threshold. Most states have no threshold at all, zero. And of the 14 states that have any kind of threshold at all, the second highest is Maryland at $15,000.
It really is something that sets us apart and is unique to our state in terms of being able to access that trial by jury. We talk a little bit more about that when we come back from the break. I also want to talk about one of the things that landed us on the list this year, and that's this lawsuit filed by the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority East. We're visiting with Melissa Landry. She's with Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch, and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show on Cox 4.
The Louisiana Business and Industry Show will be back right after this.
BIC Media Solutions is a marketing and communication, media advisory, and event planning company within BIC Alliance. BIC Media Solutions offers custom book publishing, event planning, and keynote speaking to its clients in the business and industrial sector, and marketing partnerships to others in publishing. BIC Alliance is your business and industry connection. Contact BIC Alliance today.
What if I said that the American dream is alive and well, and that it exists for anyone willing to build it? That the power of a nation does not reside in its monuments, but in the hearts and minds of those who built them, and that the country's greatest heroes also wear hard hats. In today's America, it's not enough to dream about the future. You have to build it. Build your future at byf.org.
Consumers and property owners with a construction project can have a very successful result or a regretful experience that could have been avoided. Before beginning any construction project in Louisiana, verify licensure of the contractor and check references. Scammers may claim to be licensed or bonded, but you should ask for a copy of the license. For additional information, contact the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors or go to the website lslbc.louisiana.gov. Licensed and qualified contractors. It's the law.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show with Tim Johnson.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show, visiting with Melissa Landry of Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch. We're talking about the impact that our judicial climate, our legal climate has on job creation, investment in our state. Melissa, we talked about this ranking of Louisiana being 7th on what's called the judicial hellhole watch list. Not the place we want to be. It's better than it was last year. We're moving in the right direction. You and your organization having a significant impact on that. But one of the things that was in the news a lot in 2014 was this lawsuit that was filed by the South Louisiana Flood Protection Authority East. It was a very high-profile issue, and it's one of the things that's mentioned in the Hellholes report. What's the current status of that litigation? Why is it important? What does it mean in terms of the list that we find ourselves on? Give us some background and some insight into that lawsuit.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case that continues to play out, in a legal saga in the courts each and every day. The legislature was very bold in really addressing the actions of the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority last year. It was an issue that dominated the legislative session, and in the end, the legislature passed a bill that clarified the law, which said that the only entity that can bring these kinds of lawsuits on behalf of the state is the state.
Well, and let's make sure our viewers are up to speed. This was a lawsuit filed by this levee board, so to speak, which is what these flood protection authorities are. Very critical and important role that they play in protecting our state. But they basically brought suit against some 90 plus major oil companies in the state basically pointing out or asserting that they were responsible for a lot of the damage that's been done to our coast, and that they would have to spend billions and billions of dollars and be primarily responsible for restoration of coastal Louisiana. I think there's a lot of argument both ways, obviously. There is some thought that these oil companies have done what they've been asked to do in terms of coastal restoration and putting things back like they were before they came in to do their drilling. But that's really the crux of the argument there. And when you look at major investment in our state, major oil companies coming into our state, I don't think there's a single person who wouldn't say they have a responsibility to act within the law, to act with some environmental oversight and do things the right way. But we invited them to come here. We've sort of reaped the benefits of those oil companies being here, and for us to file suit against 90 of them like we did is part of why folks say our judicial climate needs repair.
Absolutely. I think the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority lawsuit is a misguided tactic. The folks involved in that effort worked really hard to try and convince citizens and certainly members of the legislature that this was about saving the coast of Louisiana, when in fact no massive litigation, even one targeting 97, energy producers in Louisiana, is going to, in and of itself, solve the problem of coastal restoration in Louisiana. So it's a little bit of a red herring. Then you look at the process by which the lawyers were hired to pursue this litigation, significant financial interests that they have in the case, the lack of transparency that was involved in hiring those lawyers, those attorneys. And then you look at what has happened in the case since the legislature passed the bill. The attorneys have continued the ongoing legal battle that has come at tremendous cost to taxpayers, and now it's still pending in federal court. Governor Jindal recently intervened in the litigation on behalf of the state, saying that clarifying his position of the governor's office, that it is the state's authority to bring this suit.
Well, and we'll watch it very closely as we have to see where it goes from here, but I'm assuming that it might be something that we hear about again in the legislative session that's coming up. We've got about 2 minutes left in this segment, so let's break down for the folks watching at home. Do you have data about how this negative perception impacts jobs and investment in our state? What's the economic impact of being on this list of quote judicial hellholes?
Absolutely. Every survey of major employers in the country has found consistently that they consider a state's legal climate when they're deciding where to make new investments or where they decide to expand existing investments. The U.S. economists working on behalf of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce have estimated that our state's negative legal climate costs us as many as 50,000 jobs every year, and that passing reforms to improve the state's legal climate could save Louisiana businesses as much as $1.1 billion annually.
$1.1 billion annually and 50,000 jobs. That is a significant impact. And I don't think those of us who are citizens here, business owners and citizens, I mean, if you're not a business owner in this state, you think about the cost of your automobile insurance, and that's a direct reflection of our legal climate here and how litigious we are, that our car insurance rates are as high as they are. I know that's something you guys see as well.
It's something we're very passionate about. There's a very strong correlation between the excessive litigation that we have in the state and the high automobile insurance premiums that we pay. We are consistently, one of the highest we are consistently
all insurances across the board we're higher consistently.
Ranked at the very top 10, of almost every survey that there is for insurance rates, and that is a large part due to the fact that we have a lot of litigation.
I want to come back from the break and talk specifically about what might be on the horizon, the things you guys might be involved in this legislative session. We're visiting with Melissa Landry. She's with Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch, and you're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show on Cox 4.
The Louisiana Business and Industry Show will be back right after this.
Hi, I'm Joe Martin, president of ITI Technical College. Do you want a better life?
Get your associate's degree in occupational studies in information technology from ITI. In 2 years, you'll be on your way to a better life. You will get hands-on specialized training in computers, hardware and software, networking, and more. ITI offers flexible class schedules, and financial aid is available to those who qualify.
So don't wait. Call ITI now or go online. It's that simple.
ITI for a better life.
The funny thing about Louisiana is that people don't often ask you why you moved home. They just accept it as the most natural thing in the world. Because of course I would want to move back home and be near my tribe, be in this beautiful landscape. It just inspires me. Whether it's a golden marshland, an expanse of sugarcane fields, a sunset through a cypress swamp, the outdoors here really are like nowhere else. You can start your day off paddling at Lake Martin, finish it off with music at the Blue Moon. I came home for my dream job, but also because I believe in Louisiana and where it's going. We're building a world-class Central Park in Louisiana, planned by the members of this community. And I just bought my dream home, a sustainable house designed and built by the architecture students here at the university. My electricity bill was $30 last month. The life I thought I would have in Austin is actually happening right here in Louisiana. I'm E.B. Brooks. I have the job I want in the place I love.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show with Tim Johnson.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. We're visiting with Melissa Landry of Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch. Melissa, we know that, and we've talked about it in the first two segments, that our state's legal climate, the fact that we are a relatively litigious state compared to others. We rank number 7, and that's on a bad list in terms of our legal climate in our state. And I've heard this comment, the tort tax, the cost of excessive litigation. We talked a little bit about it in the last segment, but explain to our viewers what the tort tax is and what its impact might be.
Yeah, we all pay for the cost of litigation through the increased price of goods and services. So, a plastic football helmet for your son who plays football that used to cost $8 now costs $30. Certainly some of that has to do with, evolving economics, but you can bet a big part of that too is litigation that's been built into the cost of that product. The tort tax is a way of putting a number on that sort of that broad idea, and it's estimated that the tort tax costs $835 for every man, woman, and child in Louisiana. So you think about a family of 4, that adds up pretty quick.
Yeah, you're talking about $2,500 a year that a family might pay just for the cost of excessive litigation. I know that Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch works very closely with other partner business associations, particularly the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, LLAW. You mentioned others, National Federation of Independent Businesses, small business organizations like that. Talk about how you work with those organizations, the kind of things you focus on, and what you and those organizations are doing specifically now to improve our legal climate.
Sure. The partnerships are incredibly important. The Louisiana Association of Business and Industry has just been a tremendous leader in the legal reform effort. Certainly, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, bringing, those small business members that they have to the legislature, getting them actively involved in the fight. We also work really closely with the Coalition for Common Sense, which is a group very similar to ours. What we have learned in the legal reform effort over the years is that it is a tremendous uphill battle, and so building and maintaining those very strong partnerships, working with LLAW and NFIB and others to really establish priorities year after year is tremendously important, so that we're all speaking with one voice and moving in the same direction, so that we can get ourselves out of this judicial hellhole once and for all.
Get off that list.
Absolutely.
For good. Well, let's talk about some of those specific initiatives. What kind of things might we look for in 2015 that the Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch and working with its partners might be pushing for, the changes you might be trying to implement?
Yeah, I fully expect that the discussion over the jury trial threshold will continue to be a major issue for 2015 and going forward. It is just tremendously important that we make some effort to get rid of this arbitrary
Bring us
barrier.
in line with the rest of the country.
We have to get in line with the rest of the country, and I think that will continue to be a major priority. Another area that we're deeply concerned about and very interested in is really improving the accountability and transparency over our judiciary in Louisiana. We sort of have a system where they right now where the judiciary largely regulates themselves. That hasn't always produced the best results. I certainly don't want to paint our judiciary with too broad of a brush, but there have been a whole series of stories in very recent years that describe a pattern of troubling behavior. We'd like to support some reforms that help provide greater accountability and transparency for the judiciary, and that will go a long way towards helping to improve the state's legal climate.
And we'll be looking for those things as we go through the course of the year. A little over a minute left. I want to get to two things quickly. And you mentioned this. You don't want to paint with a broad brush. And you were on the radio show a couple of times. You'll be on the radio show again here this week. We're not saying that someone who has a legitimate cause of action should anyway be restricted from the courts. We're not saying that all lawyers are bad or all judges are bad in our state. We've got a great system in many ways. We just got to tweak it and improve it, and I know that's what you guys are focused on.
Absolutely. We 100% believe that when accidents occur, individuals have the absolute right to pursue litigation as a way of ensuring, justice for those who are truly harmed. It's very important. The problem, the concern comes in when there's corruption and abuse in the system. That's what we're concerned about. That's what we're trying to get rid of. And
trying to eliminate. About 15 seconds. If people want more information or want to get involved with your organization, what do they do?
Please look us up online. We're at www.law.org, LLAW.org. We're also on Facebook at Reform Louisiana, and Twitter and LinkedIn.
Melissa Landry, Louisiana Lawsuit Abuse Watch, thanks for your time today.
Thank you so much.
That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show on Cox 4.